All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, from Chehalis, Washington, I'm going to introduce our next speaker, and I'll just tell you that he is one of my favorite speakers on campus, and I have asked him several times if I could use his speeches as exemplars. So you're going to enjoy the speech. Please welcome to the stage, Mr. Jacob Ford.
Woo! Thank you, thank you. Okay, guys, I want you all to close your eyes. You're gonna imagine yourself on a terrace. Now, not a terrace that's on the side of a building, but this is a flat area carved into the side of a mountain. And up against the face of the mountain, you see a large group of people huddled together. And they're all wearing these drab gray cloaks. You think, oh man, there's something strange about them. So you take a few steps closer, and you're able to get a good look at their faces. And then it hits you. You realize that all of their eyes have been sewn shut with iron wire. But fortunately for you guys, you can now open your eyes. But the scene I have just described to you is one from Dante's Purgatorio. It's a grim scene in which some poor souls are being tortured for the sin of envy. As you can see, Dante does not take envy very lightly. But what is envy, and why is it so bad? Well, firstly, we need to define our terms. Well, I know what you're thinking. Jacob, we are community college students enrolled at the second most prestigious institution of higher learning east of the I-5 and west of Tower Avenue. I think we know what envy means. You see, that's where I'm willing to bet that you're probably wrong, because envy is often confused with jealousy. They're very two different and separate emotions. So it's important that we define our terms so that we can continue on in this conversation about envy. Webster's Dictionary, they've been publishing dictionaries for well over 150 years. They define envy as a painful, resentful awareness of an advantage enjoyed by another, coupled with a desire to obtain that same advantage. So let's put that into layman's terms. Noah sees something that John has. Noah not only hates John for having it, but it would bring Noah a lot of pleasure and satisfaction to see John lose everything and become a miserable wretch. That is envy. Now we can define jealousy as, again, through Merriam-Webster's, as fiercely guarding one's possessions or intolerance of rivalry or unfaithfulness. So jealousy has to do with the things we already have, while envy has to do with the things that other people have and we want. Does that make sense? Are you guys following me? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Thumbs up, great. Okay, I'm gonna need you guys to unmute yourselves because we're gonna play a little game. I'm gonna give you guys a scenario and you're gonna have to tell me what the underlying emotion driving the scenario is, whether it's envy or jealousy. Now, keep in mind, these are entirely made-up scenarios and hold very little bearing to reality. Okay? You all ready? Sweet. Scenario number 1. Jeff is in a bar and he sees another man flirting with his wife. So he walks up to the dude and clocks him in the face. Jealousy or envy?
Jealousy.
Right, jealousy. Okay, scenario number 2. Noah has a rival teammate on the baseball team who's much better than baseball than he is. Noah really doesn't like this guy, and it would bring him a lot of pleasure to see him kicked off the team. Jealousy or envy?
Envy. Jealousy.
Envy.
Oh, envy, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, scenario number 3. Aiden has a prized oboe, and he lends it to a fellow musician. But while they're playing it, he quickly takes it back because he can't stand the sight of someone else playing his beloved instrument. Jealousy or envy?
Jealousy.
Jealousy, correct. Okay, 4th and last scenario. Haylee has a sibling who's way more successful than she is. It's put a strain on their relationship. Haylee would really like to see that sibling lose their job so that she could take the slot as the most successful sibling in the household? Jealousy or envy?
Envy.
Envy.
Envy. Awesome. You guys are amazing. You can now mute yourselves. But before we go any further, I need to address this very important point, because today there are a lot of people that think envy can actually be a virtue. They think that envy can be a good thing. The logic goes that if you see something that someone else has, you can use a little bit of envy to motivate you to go get what you want. But that is a very naive way and a very naive understanding of how envy works. Envy will corrupt, destroy, and steal. It will not motivate you to get what you want. A lot of you may or may not know this about me, but I really love to go to the gym. I love to pick heavy things up and set them back down where I found them. And ever since I stepped foot into the weight room, envy has plagued me. I see someone who's stronger than me or has a better physique than me, and I become envious. And it ruins my day. I become self-conscious and I feel inadequate. And as a result of that, I overtrain myself, which will lead to injury or missed reps. And on top of that, just feeling down about myself. So take it from me, envy will not lead you to getting what you want. Take this cup of water, for example. This cup of water represents my time at the gym. It's a time where I get to relax, unwind, and become better, become stronger. But watch what happens when I put just a little bit of envy to the mix. It quickly corrupts, distorts the entire thing, and now it's something that it wasn't to begin with. So I want you all to hold up your invisible cup. Go ahead. Think about an area in your life where you potentially see envy, or maybe it's already there. Maybe you already have envy in your life, creeping in and stealing your joy, ruining something that you already enjoyed. Maybe it's at sports practice. Maybe it's in the classroom. Maybe a coworker just got the promotion instead of you. Or maybe every time you open Instagram and you start scrolling, you're faced with the hard reality that everyone else's life seems to be going so much better than yours. Where do you see envy? Hold up your cups, guys. Where do you see envy coming into your life? I'll take that cup. We're going to set it down. We're going to come back to that later. But now we're going to do a case study on how envy not only affects us, it affects the people around us. Now, our story comes from the Bible, one of the most influential books ever written. This is a story about two brothers, Cain and Abel. Now, Cain was a farmer. He grew crops, and Abel was a shepherd. Now, back in those days, it was very common for people to give sacrifices to God. They did this to show their reliance on God and how much they honored and respected him. Now, when you give a sacrifice, you don't give God your worst. You give him your best. It shows how much you honor him. Now, when Cain and Abel went to give their sacrifices, Cain just gave God some of his crops. But Abel gave God his very best. And God rejected Cain's gift, but accepted Abel's. Cain became angry and envious of his brother. Now, God appeared to Cain because he saw Cain's mood. He knew what Cain was going through, and he gave him a warning. He said, "Cain, why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do what is wrong, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you. You must rule over it." But Cain did not listen to God. He let envy stew inside of his heart until he killed his own brother. Now, there are three things that we can take away from the story. Firstly, envy is a response to low self-worth, but it is never the answer. Cain felt bad because his gift was rejected, but instead of fixing his mistakes, he let envy control his actions. Now, secondly, envy is not just an internal thing, it affects other people, it's external. The envy in Cain's heart did not just ruin his day, it led him to kill his own brother. But thirdly, there is hope. Remember what God said to Cain? Sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. The question is, how do we rule over it? How do we rule over envy and end our despair? Be grateful and do not compare. Guys, gratitude is the answer here. You cannot be grateful for what you have and yet desire what someone else has. For example, I cannot be happy and satisfied with the car I drive and yet desire to take it into the dealership and trade it in for a new one. Likewise, I cannot be grateful and envious at the same time. Now, I know what you're thinking. Jacob, that sounds great. What proof do you have? And how do I implement this into my life? Great question. I'm really glad you asked. There was a study done in 2016. A group of professors at the University of Indiana, they studied 300 college students who were all entering into some sort of psychotherapy. All of these students had reported clinically low levels of mental health. They divided them into 3 different groups. The first group, they went into counseling, but they were instructed to write gratitude letters. The second group, they went into counseling, but they were instructed to write about their thoughts, feelings, and negative emotions. The third group just went into counseling. And you know what they found? At the end of 12 weeks, the group that had the most improvement on their mental health was the group that went into counseling and wrote gratitude letters. So here are our takeaways. Being grateful will not only just prevent envy from getting in your heart, gratitude will heal you from the wounds of envy that are already there. It will weed it out from your life. You guys, being grateful is going to take a long time. It's going to take a lot of hard work and a lot of effort. But in the long run, it will heal you from the effects of envy. So everyone hold up your cups again, your invisible cups, and think about how in your life you can be grateful in that scenario where you feel envy creeping in. You can set yours down now. I want you guys to get your phones, if you're able to, grab your phones out, or if you have your piece of paper, get that ready. Open your notifications or calendar app. And I want you to set a reoccurring notification. And this notification is going to say, write down 3 things that I am grateful for. So for example, if you set yours for 6 o'clock tonight, make sure that next Friday, 6 o'clock, you get bzz, bzz, write down 3 things I'm grateful for. And the week after that, and the week after that, and the week after that, forever and ever, until you drop your phone in a puddle outside of Walmart. Don't ask. Can I get a thumbs up when you guys got it? So just remember this. Gratitude will prevent envy from getting in your heart. Gratitude will heal you from the wounds of envy. How do we rule over envy and end our despair? Be grateful and do not compare. And with that, I thank you. Woo!
Awesome. Good job, Jacob. Jacob's time was 14 minutes and 15 seconds. Pop quiz, you guys. If you had to say one word that comes to mind when you just saw that speech, what was the one word unmute yourselves for me.
Gratitude.
Yeah. That there's an example of honing in on one thing, because remember how I always say in the introductory class, I said this a million times, if we forget everything else, when people walk out the door, what's the one thing you need to remember? And that is gratitude, or being grateful. Good job, Jacob. So we're going to go into the feedback with Noah and then Haylee.
Yeah, so Jacob, your audience involvement was absolutely fantastic. I love the examples you used with the games, and then your cup that we had for us, and then you got us right. So just you kept us involved through and throughout, which was awesome, and kept us super engaged throughout the whole presentation. Room for improvement. I sort of just wish that the speech had a little more structure to it. Like I knew when you started talking about envy and jealousy, like we were gonna get to something about being grateful. But I wish you had like taken us on that journey a little more. Like I'm a very logical person, so hearing like your 3 main points right away would be super helpful. But that's pretty minimal. So you did a fantastic job, guy.
Thanks, Noah. And then Haylee.
Yeah, John, I think you did or not John, Jacob. Sorry, my mind is not working. Finals. I think you did an absolutely fantastic job on your speech. I think you were very creative in the way that you got us involved and like made it concrete for us. So I thought that like object lesson was really creative and a good way to make visual seem like we were in person. And I think that you also were paced very well. The one thing that I saw for improvement is that like I just wish you had a little bit more energy. I think that overall you're a very like calm, cool, collected guy, and that comes across really well when you're speaking. But when you're making those like big, like overarching points and you want it to be like kind of like nailed down, that's what you want us to remember. Maybe just like a little more voice inflection, a little bit more energy, or like get up in our face through the camera to kind of like make your point known, I guess. But otherwise, you did a fantastic job.
Thanks, Haylee. And Jacob, the thought that you put into the cup, the whole cup idea, and I actually got chills when you made the red envy go away. That was just awesome. I love that. That was really cool. Okay.